Now we're on Joshua 11. And the first 3 verses are, then it came about when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of it, that he sent to Jobab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Akshaph. And so the kings who were of the north in the hill country, and in the Arabah, south of the Kinneron in the lowland, and on the heights of Dor on the west, to the Canaanite on the east and on the west, and the Amorite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Jebusite in the hill country, and the Hivite at the foot of Hermon in the land of Mizpah. Okay, now we're going to talk about conquest in this northern part of the land. And see, they had heard of the conquests that Israel had already. These that are listed here, they're in the north part. They're going to band together and make an offensive themselves. So you're going to see here how the north forces advanced and how Joshua's forces advanced as we go on here. Verses 4 through 6, and they came out, they and all their armies with them, as many people as the sand that is on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. So all of these kings, having agreed to meet, came and encamped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. Then Yahweh said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid because of them, for tomorrow at this time I will deliver all of them slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire." Now, the specifics of Elohim's directive to Joshua should not go unnoticed. Yahweh directed Joshua to slay all the enemy, as well as the unusual order here to hamstring the enemy's horses and to burn their chariots. Yeah, you cut the hamstrings. Yeah, he said hamstring the horses and burn their chariots. And which is interesting, and look at all the people that were listed here in that previous verse. You had the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, and the Hivites that they're going to go against. And remember, there's 7 of them. There's 2 that aren't listed here, probably already defeated in the southern portion. But each one of these was larger and greater than Israel. Each one alone was, singly. And why hamstring the horses and burn the chariots? Won't those be handy? You'd think? Well, that's the main reason to do it, because he said so. Now, why do you think he said so? Yeah, render the horses useless and burn the chariots. Well, you know what I think he's doing here, what Elohim is doing? I think there's a danger that Israel might be tempted to use these new weapons of war, okay? And he didn't want them to do that, all right? He's going to defeat all these greater people than them that have all these weapons of war. He's going to defeat them. Yeah. Yeah, David took a census. Yeah, that's right. You know, yeah, that's right. A precursor to 1967. That's in 1948. Uh-huh. Where all these people, all the Jebusites and the Girgashites came up against Israel in those days, and in our lifetimes, at least one of them in my lifetime, and they got it handed to them. And that's Elohim. That's Elohim. Now, keep in mind, he doesn't want them relying on weapons of war. He wants them relying on him. David wrote in Psalm 20, verse 7, "Some boast in chariots and some in horses, but we will boast in the name of Yahweh, our Elohim." That's who he wants them to rely on, is him. Not the chariots, not the horses, not the automatic AR-15s that, never mind. Furthermore, the Canaanites, they used horses in pagan worship. And later, Judah did the same. We see in 2 Kings 23, verse 11, "And he did away with the horses which the kings of Judah had given to the sun at the entrance of the house of Yahweh, by the chamber of Nathan Melech, the official, which was in the precincts, and he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. So they used that in sun worship later on. Going back to Joshua 11, verses 7 through 9. So Joshua and all the people of war with him came upon them suddenly by the waters of Merom and attacked them. And Yahweh delivered them into the hand of Israel, so that they defeated them and pursued them as far as Great Sidon and Marashoth Maim and the valley of Mizpah and to the east. And they struck them until no survivor was left to them. And Joshua did to them as Yahweh had told him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. Now Yahweh delivered these kings into the hand of Israel. And they obeyed the commands and hamstrung the horses, and they burned those chariots with fire. Verses 10 through 12. Then Joshua turned back at that time and captured Hazor and struck its king with the sword. For Hazor formerly was the head of all these kingdoms. And they struck every person who was in it with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them, and there was no one left who breathed. And he burned Hazor with fire. And Joshua captured all the cities of these kings and all their kings, and he struck them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed them, just as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had commanded. So all the kings and all the people that came against Israel, they were destroyed completely. Verse 13, however, Israel did not burn any cities that stood on their mounds, except Hazor alone, which Joshua burned. See, now the cities on the mounds were not burned with fire. The command here was to hamstring the horses, burn the chariots. Elohim did not want them to trust in these things for their protection. The cities on the plains could be easily attacked and carried away, so Joshua destroyed them. But those that could be used as a high vantage point in the future, they kept those. They could be easily defended, and those are some of the cities that they would live in. Verses 14 and 15. And all the spoil of these cities and the cattle the sons of Israel took as their plunder. But they struck every man with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they left no one who breathed. Just as Yahweh had commanded Moses, his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that Yahweh had commanded Moses. So as Yahweh had commanded Moses, so Moses commanded Joshua, and so they did. We read in Exodus 34, starting at verse 11. Be sure to observe what I'm commanding you this day. Behold, I'm going to drive out the Amorite before you, and the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Watch yourself that you make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land into which you're going, lest it become a snare in your midst. But rather you are to tear down their altars, smash their sacred pillars, and cut down their asherim. Also in Deuteronomy 7, starting at verse 2, and when Yahweh your Elohim shall deliver them before you, and you shall defeat them, then you shall utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them and show no favor to them. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of Yahweh will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you. But thus you shall do to them. You shall tear down their altars, smash their sacred pillars, hew down their asherim, and burn their graven images with fire. You are a holy people to Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Now, the question has arisen, I've seen it asked many times or stated many times. I've always pointed out how wicked the Quran is, okay, about how kill the infidels. I've had people say, I've heard people say, well, the Old Testament said to do the same thing. How's that different? Well, where the directive comes from is one thing, yes. Why is Israel to destroy all those people in that land?
So they won't have any pagan influences on them.
There won't be any pagan influences on them. Well, Muslims will make that same claim. We don't want any pagan influences on us. So, I'll tell you what I said. It was very specific here who they're supposed to destroy. The Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite, the Girgashite. There were 7 peoples in that land they're told to utterly destroy. Now, why did Elohim say destroy all these people? And what you said is correct. It's because of the pagan influence.
But that's not the whole population. There was 7 others as well.
But those are the only ones they're told to completely destroy. Right. Yes. And the reason why, then in particular, they were so wicked. Remember, they said they even burned their children to these gods. Okay? Why did he have to give, why would you think he even has to give a command against bestiality? Well, come on, really? Why? Because that's what they were doing. The incest. The rampant homosexuality, incest, bestiality, burning their children to their fake gods. He says, destroy them. They're all doing it. Get rid of them. This had to be a disease-filled, vile people. Got to be destroyed. Okay? I don't want you doing any of these. That's why he gave all those things in the Torah. You would think you wouldn't even have to say, don't have sex with animals. I mean, wouldn't you think that wouldn't even have to come up the dinner table? Some things you would think could go without saying, but no, it couldn't go without saying because it was rampant in these people. They've got to be wiped out. He didn't say in the Old Testament, as they say, in the Tanakh, it doesn't say destroy everyone who thinks differently than you and who believes differently than you. It doesn't say that. Those particular people they were told to be wiped out, and that's why.
Plus he knew who they were going to be developed into over the years.
Right. He knew who they would develop into in the future. And because they didn't destroy them all, lo and behold, we have a terrorism problem in the United States of America because of that. A Muslim problem. No, excuse me, an Islam problem. Because they didn't do it. So in case that ever comes up, you ever run into it, that's the answer. He had them to destroy, completely wipe out specific wicked people. Okay, completely wicked and deplorable. Verse 16 of Joshua 11. Thus Joshua took all that land, the hill country and all the Negev, and all that land of Goshen, the lowland, the Arabah, the hill country of Israel and its lowland, from Mount Halak that rises toward Seir, even as far as Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon at the foot of Mount Hermon, and he captured all their kings and struck them down and put them to death. Joshua waged war a long time with all these kings. Now, how long is a long time? Caleb was 40 years old when sent from Kadesh Barnea to spy the land. Okay? And he was 85 at the conclusion of this war. We see in Joshua 14, verse 10, and now behold, Yahweh has let me live just as he spoke these 45 years from the time that Yahweh spoke this word to Moses when Israel walked in the wilderness. And now behold, I am 85 years old today. Almost 39 years of this time were spent before Israel passed the Jordan, which leaves between 6 and 7 years for the term of Joshua's wars. So you see, these weren't real quick and easy. These lasted years. Verses 19 and 20. There was not a city which made peace with the sons of Israel except the Hivites living in Gibeon. They took them all in battle. For it was of Yahweh to harden their hearts, to meet Israel in battle, in order that he might utterly destroy them, that they might receive no mercy, but that he might destroy them just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Yahweh hardened the hearts of their enemies. They came against Israel and they were destroyed. Elohim didn't make their hearts against him. He just really made their true feelings arise and come to the top. He made them act upon how they felt. That's the same thing he did to Pharaoh. Verses 21 and 22, then Joshua came at that time and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. There were no Anakim left in the land of the sons of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Gath, and in Ashdod some remained. Israel utterly destroyed the Anakim. They dwelt in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod. And that's far south of the land that Israel occupied. Verse 23, so Joshua took the whole land according to all that Yahweh had spoken to Moses. And Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes. Thus the land had rest from war. Now this is just as Yahweh had promised Moses. In Exodus 23, starting at verse 27, I'll send my terror ahead of you and throw into confusion all the people among you when you come, and I'll make all your enemies turn their backs to you. And I'll send hornets ahead of you that they may drive out the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites before you. I'll not drive them out before you in a single year, that the land may not become desolate, and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. I'll drive them out before you little by little, until you become fruitful and take possession of the land. And I'll fix your boundary from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the wilderness to the river Euphrates. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you'll drive them out before you. So that's why he took time doing it. All right? If you just wiped out the land, well, you got a lot of land there. And how are they going to keep it and preserve it and work it? They've got to do it a little bit at a time. So that's how Elohim planned it. That's how he did it. It makes complete sense. Now, the land was given as an inheritance according to divisions, just as instructed by Yahweh to Moses and then to Joshua. And that's told in Numbers 26, but we're not going to go there. So Elohim had this all planned out for the people. The best way for it to happen. I'll send hornets ahead of you. Boy, them hornets can sure chase you out, can't they? There's not much you can do about it either. If you get a bunch of them after you, you'll run. You get the heck out of there wherever it is. Yeah,
Have you heard the stories from 67 where it said they had swarms of hornets?
Absolutely. Yeah, in 1967, in the Six-Day War in Jerusalem, they had the same issue. Hornets were driving the people out.
Out of where?
Out of Israel. Not the Israelites. It was the enemies of Israel, those that attacked.
Some hornets make this big, God said this thing, but they make a sound noise that you put a bunch of them together, it amplifies, it takes and puts up in that.
Yeah.
About how you could use it over here, like hear the sound of this coming through.
You get enough of them with that sound, you're going to wish it was a tank. Let's look at Joshua 12, the first few verses. Now these are the kings of the land whom the sons of Israel defeated, and whose land they possessed beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise, from the valley of the Arnon as far as Mount Hermon and all the Arabah to the east. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon and ruled from Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, both the middle of the valley and half of Gilead, even as far as the brook Jabbok, the border of the sons of Ammon, and the Arabah as far as the sea of Kinneroth toward the east, and as far as the sea of the Arabah, even the salt sea eastward toward Beth Jeshimoth, and on the south at the foot of the slopes of Pisgah, and the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and at Edrei, and ruled over Mount Hermon and Salacon and all Bashan as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Makathites, and half of Gilead as far as the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Excuse me. Now Joshua displayed brilliant military strategy in the way he went around conquering this land of Canaan. He first conquered the well-fortified city of Jericho to gain a foothold in Canaan and to demonstrate the awesome might of the Elohim of Israel. Then he gained the hill country of Bethel and Gibeon. From there, he subdued the lowlands. This is all the conquered land and all the lands that are listed here. Then his army conquered important cities to the north, such as Hazor. In all, Israel conquered land both east and west of the Jordan River, from Mount Hermon in the north to beyond the Negev to Mount Halak in the south. 31 kings and their cities had been defeated. The Israelites had overpowered the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and other people living in Canaan were yet to be conquered. So, once again, each one of these people were greater and stronger and mightier than Israel. Now, we'll just kind of go through this here. Verse 6, Moses, the servant of Yahweh, and the sons of Israel defeated them. And Moses, the servant of Yahweh, gave it to the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh as a possession. Now these are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the sons of Israel defeated beyond the Jordan toward the west, from Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon, even as far as Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir. And Joshua gave it to the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their divisions. In the hill country, in the lowland, in the Arabah on the slopes, and in the wilderness, and in the Negev, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. The king of Jericho won. The king of Ayah, which is beside Bethel, won. The king of Jerusalem won. The king of Hebron won. The king of Jarmuth won. The king of Lachish won. The king of Eglon won. The king of Gezer won. The king of Debir won. The king of Geder won. The king of Hormah won. The king of Arad won. The king of Libnah won. The king of Adullam won. The king of Mekkedah won. The king of Bethel won. The king of Tepuah won. The king of Hepher won. By the way, there's a lot of Joshua's very similar to this that we're going to be skipping. Just you'll see in future chapters. Verse 18, the king of Aphek won. The king of Lasharon won. The king of Madon won. The king of Hazor won. The king of Shimron-Meron won. The king of Akshaph won. The king of Tanakh won. The king of Megiddo won. The king of Kadesh won. The king of Jokneam and Carmel won. The king of Dor and the heights of Dor won. The king of Goim and Gilgal won. The king of Tirzah won. In all, 31 kings. And then chapter 13. Now Joshua was old and advanced in years when Yahweh said to him, "You are old and advanced in years, and very much of the land remains to be possessed." You know, Joshua's not through with his work, but he's not a young man anymore. There's a lot of land yet to possess. Joshua has a lot to do, and he's not getting any younger. Verse 2, this is the land that remains. All the regions of the Philistines and all those of the Geshurites. From the Shihor, which is east of Egypt, even as far as the border of Ekron to the north, it is counted as Canaanite. The 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazite, the Ashdodite, the Ashkelonite, the Gittite, the Ekronite, and the Evite. To the south, all the land of the Canaanite, Mira, that belongs to the Sidonians as far as Aphek, to the border of the Amorite. Now, much of the next 7 chapters deal with description and delineation of the land that Israel's going to conquer, which is why we're going to skip over a lot of that. Verse 5, in the land of Gebelite and all of Lebanon toward the east, from the Baal-Gad below Mount Hermon as far as Lebo-Hamath. All the inhabitants of the hill country from Lebanon as far as Mishrephoth, Maim, all the Sidonians, I'll drive them out from before the sons of Israel. Only allotted to Israel for an inheritance as I have commanded you. Now therefore apportion this land for an inheritance to the 9 tribes and the half-tribe of Manasseh. So this land is to be divided up between 9.5 tribes on the west side of the Jordan. And this is it right here. It's being described. Now if you look, you got Reuben and Gad here, and then you got East Manasseh, and then Manasseh. So you got your half a tribe there. Manassans are split up. But they still have quite a bit of territory on each side. Verse 8, with the other half-tribe, the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them beyond the Jordan to the east, just as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, gave to them. From Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, with the city, which is in the middle of the valley, and all the plain of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the cities of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon as far as the border of the sons of Ammon. Now, I'm I'm going to go ahead and read through part of this. Verse 11, in Gilead and the territory of the Geshurites and the Makathites and all Mount Hermon and all Bashan as far as Salekah, the kingdom of Og and Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei, he alone was left of the remnant of the Rephaim, for Moses struck them and dispossessed them. But the sons of Israel did not dispossess the Geshurites or the Makathites, for Geshur and Makath lived among Israel until this day. That doesn't sound like a good thing. Only the tribe of Levi he did not give an inheritance. The offerings by fire to Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, are their inheritance as he spoke to him. So Moses gave an inheritance to the tribe of the sons of Reuben according to their families. And it goes on to describe the land. Skipping down to verse 22, the sons of Israel also killed Balaam, the son of Beor, the diviner, with the sword among the rest of their slain. And the border of the sons of Reuben was the Jordan. This was the inheritance of the sons of Reuben according to their families, the cities and their villages. The territory then is described once more. And then verses 32 and 33. These are the territories which Moses apportioned for an inheritance in the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan at Jericho to the east. But to the tribe of Levi, Moses did not give an inheritance. Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, is their inheritance as he had promised them. So they all get an inheritance except for the Levites. They have a special service to do for the people for Yahweh. So